week we give each other a little homework assignment. You get a week to listen to an album you never heard before. I was assigned Periphery 3 Select Difficulty, and you were assigned one of my favorite prog albums of all time, Fate's Warning, A Pleasant Shade of Gray.
Yes.
I want to give that to you first. You can start off talking about what I gave you.
All right. So it took me forever to finally listen to Pleasant Shade of Gray, but when I did, so it's set up, that title is the whole album. It's not, so all the songs are just part of A Pleasant Shade of Gray. So it's, part 1, part 2, part 3. It goes all the way to 12. It's a 12-part piece. It falls just under an hour in length. And I've never heard any Fates Warning stuff before, ever. Never heard the band. It's one of those, like, they're on my shelf. They're on my list. Like, oh, this is a really cool prog band. I should check them out. I'm probably going to really like them. So Jeff mentioned to me, like, oh, it's not going to be like Dream Theater, like prog, but it's going to be kind of progressive, and it's going to be really heavy, and it's going to be dark. And I was floored. I really, really enjoyed it. I listened to part 1, and I get this like real raunchy dissonant guitar chord, and it just kind of, and then this really simple little melody figure comes in that, and it's repeated enough times that I'm sitting here thinking this is probably going to be somewhat of a main motif, a kind of thing that's gonna like let me get this in my head so that I can listen for it when it comes back. And sure enough, it did come back several times throughout the album, and every time it came back, I liked it more. I love that sort of organic style of writing where you take one simple idea and you just sprinkle it through your whole album and do a lot of different stuff with it. Pretty much for the first like 7 or 8 parts, each part was better than the last for me. The further I went into the album, the more I liked it. I got like these real dark, heavy guitar riffs that weren't overly complicated, but they were interesting enough that I'm like, yeah, this is pretty cool. Oh, wow, that's really heavy. Part 3 especially was really interesting. I really like the vocals. When the singer does his first little chorus hook in part 1, I'm like, yeah, I like the singer. I really like his tone. I really like his range. I have high expectations for what he's going to do. The only thing about the entire album that I didn't like was, this is a really specific nitpick, but it's the piano sound. Not the piano playing. The piano was great. I love the use of piano in the album. I love the playing. I love the idea.
That's Kevin Moore.
Oh, is it? Oh,
yeah.
That's even more interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of use of what's called the Phrygian scale, which is this use of like a lowered scale degree to make all of your notes just sound a little bit darker. I don't want to get into like all the theory stuff of explaining what this is. This isn't teacher talk for all we know, but there's a lot of use of Phrygian. There's a lot of use of dissonance. There's a lot of use of these like real crunchy sounds, and the piano playing is like it's perfect. The writing, it's not really anything super difficult or tricky, but it's something that like it lends itself right on top of the whole ensemble's sound, and it's really solid. But the actual piano sound itself is like straight up literally a general MIDI piano. And just from hearing so much like crappy MIDI mock-ups of like video game music and stuff I like to listen to, just hearing it on this like what's clearly a computer trying to pretend to be a piano, it just put a bad taste in my mouth. On that front, I'm like, oh, if they just recorded this on a real piano, it would be even better. So the piano writing was awesome. The piano playing was awesome. The piano sound was trash. And it bothered me every time I heard piano in that album. But every time I was like, oh man, I'd love to hear this like remix, like with, just stick a mic in a Yamaha, But yeah, there was one, oh my God, was it part 7 or 8 where like it gets really, really progressive. There's like a lot of like real interesting mixed meter stuff going on, and it was tough to count. A kind of recurring theme throughout it is these like really dissonant guitar chords that I really enjoyed. Yeah, I thought it was solid from start to finish. There wasn't a dull moment. And next thing I knew, I was like, oh, that's part 12. That's the end of it. Okay, we're done. And I definitely want to revisit it and listen to it 2 or 3 more times, as well as hitting some other stuff by Fate's Warning. Because now I'm hooked. Now I'm like, all right, this is a band I should have listened to yesterday, and or yesteryear, yesterdecade, when I was first getting into progressive stuff, when I was first getting into Dream Theater. I should have checked out Fate's Warning, because I never knew that they existed. I never knew they were a prog band, and I really, 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 really enjoyed Pleasant Shade of Gray. So thank you for sharing that. That was an awesome experience. I really enjoyed it.
I'm glad you loved it, because I love that album so much. It's one of my favorite prog albums. They're one of my favorite prog bands.
I can understand why.
And I'll even say, I'll say the word favorite again. Mark Zonder, who played on that album, is my favorite drummer. The stuff he does is so tasteful and
Oh, it was
different.
super tasteful.
He's
Yeah.
so good. And
There's
he's a
always
cool
a
guy too. You know, he's a pretty cool guy. He's recording a bunch of different stuff with a whole bunch of different people now. He's really expanding everything he does, and he's not with Fates Warning anymore, but the guy they have now is a beast also on the newer albums. The newer albums aren't as progressive as this one. They started off like more of like a straightforward heavy metal band. Until they got the singer they have now, Ray Alder. It was maybe I think the third or fourth album is called No Exit. They started to shift a little bit and become more of a prog metal band. So No Exit still kind of has that traditional heavy metal vibe to it. The first album, I believe, with Mark Zonder was Perfect Symmetry. That's where the prog stuff starts really coming to the forefront. Parallels is the next one. That's the one I think you should listen to next week.
Yeah.
Parallels. That's an excellent album. Then after that came Inside Out. After that came A Pleasant Shade of Gray. Now you talked about that keyboard sound. The next album they did after that was called Disconnected. They went a step forward with that keyboard sound, that digital, weird kind of cyberpunk kind of video game keyboard sound is more prominent in the next album, Disconnected, which is almost like, has almost more of an industrial feel to it in parts.
I got a little bit of industrial vibes from Pleasant Shade of Gray, and I really liked that, you know, because I like Tool. I like a lot of that kind of stuff, and I was always kind of hoping to get a little more of that, and I don't know where to look, and this was a great place to start. So if any of you industrial guys, I mean, Tool fans anywhere, you'd probably enjoy Pleasant Shade of Gray. It's got, it sounds like another band that you could easily shuffle. You could put Fates Warning and Tool on the same concert lineup. Let's put it that way.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, one of them could open for the other, and they can do like one of these full albums cover to cover for their live show, and it would be awesome. So if you like Tool, you'll probably like Pleasant Shade of Gray by Fates Warning, and probably some of their other stuff.
Perfect Symmetry, Parallels, and Inside Out kind of have similar sound to it, which is more, they're more song-based. They're less heavy than Pleasant Shade of Gray. They're less dark. They kind of sound like a more progressive Queensryche on Parallels, Perfect Symmetry, and Inside Out.
See, I would love that. I would totally.
That's what they sound like. That's when I first heard them was on the Parallels album. I think the one of the first songs I heard by them was Stillwater. And I was like, is this Queensryche? You know, because it sounds a lot like Queensryche, but more progressive. More progressive from that Queensryche Operation Mindcrime Empire kind of era of Queensryche. But yeah, I love Fates Warning. They're a great band. And somebody, I read somewhere, they called the guitar player from Fates Warning, they call him the anti-Petrucci.
Yeah, a lot of the guitar
he picks his notes,
really simplistic.
Yeah.
But I think it was really effective too.
Yeah. The anti-Petrucci, because he doesn't play a bunch of notes, but the notes he plays they're meaningful.
Yeah,
not saying Petrucci isn't.
I thought the guitar playing was fantastic, and when it was technical, it was great, and when it was simple, it was great, and when it was heavy, it was great, and when it was light and airy, it was great. All around, it was fantastic. I think it was one of the strong suits of the whole band was the guitar playing. So, kudos to you guys, Fates Warning. You guys are awesome. I love you. I'm gonna probably do your whole discography eventually.
I think you should. I think you would really enjoy it.
I think I owe it to myself to do so.
But A Pleasant Shade of Gray, thumbs up. You think you'd listen to it again?
Oh, absolutely. Probably tomorrow. I mean, I really, really liked it. Now I want to listen to it again before I forget it.
Now, my assignment was a band we talked about on one of our earlier podcasts, Periphery. You gave me Periphery 3 Select Difficulty, which these guys, they have a sense of humor. I'll say that right now, because Select Difficulty.
Yeah, they don't take themselves too seriously.
It's a video game thing, Select Difficulty, but it also applies to the album. Okay, my first impression of this album. Okay, I'm gonna say some words. I'm gonna say some words you may think are bad, but they're not. Don't take this in a bad way. First impression of this album, it's confusing, it's complicated, and there's a lot of weird musical choices on this album. None of that is bad, though. None of that is bad, because it challenged me, and it was like the more I got into it, the more I listened to it, the more I'm like, all right, okay, I'm getting this now. I'm getting the hang of it. You have to get the hang of Periphery. If you're like a first time listener, you're probably not going to get it. You have to
Yeah,
get
you're
the
not gonna
hang.
make it.
Yeah,
They're gonna
you gotta
leave
get
you.
the hang of this band. You
You're
know,
gonna be bleeding out on the side of the street. You're not gonna make it.
so okay, like I said, first impressions. The first two songs are like pummelingly heavy. They're just like they just boom, they just hit you.
Yeah.
The Price is Wrong uh scared me. I was like, oh my god, this is crazy, and it was confusing, but it was meant to be like that. You know, if you dig actually deeper into the lyrics and into the meaning of the song, it's like, okay, I get what he's saying. It's it's just like it's confusing and complicated, but there's a reason for it. There's a reason why they wrote it like that. Which once I started looking deeper, because I'm a lyrics guy too. Once I started looking into like the deeper meanings of these songs, or even just reading the lyrics, I was like, all right, this makes more sense now to me. It's not just one or the other. When you check them out both at the same time, the music and the lyrics, they go together pretty well. There's a great riff in that first song in between the verses. That riff is just so cool. The only and the only thing, and this it's me being an old man, I guess. Screamo vocals don't really do it for me a lot of times, and
There's a
this song,
lot of screaming in P3.
in this song, it sounded like the singer reminded me of my youngest brother throwing a tantrum when he was like 15. That's what it feels like when he got that screamo kind of vocal. It feels like a young kid throwing a tantrum, like that kid that there used to be a YouTube kid that was like freaking out because his mother canceled his World of Warcraft account.
Oh, that's a
his
notorious,
bedroom. That's what I thought of.
infamous video.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But okay, all right, that's out of the way, because I do have to say the vocal melodies when he does sing are extremely catchy. That guy is extremely talented, because other than like when he screams, because I'm not a big screamo fan, I'm not a big fan of that, but there's so much more he does with his voice that is amazing.
Yeah.
He nails these notes that are crazy high. He has only guy I could think of like over and over as I listen to is Mike Patton from Faith No More. Does a lot with his voice. This guy's like him. This Spencer dude, man, can do stuff that like I'm listening to it and I'm like, I don't know how he's
human. I don't know
how he's doing some of this. You know, just a matter of going from here to there, you know, with his voice, and then pushing it even further. And you can hear he's pushing it. And it just sounds so good. It's so like he sounds like sometimes like that dude from Linkin Park. Sometimes he sounds like him, and he sounds like the guy from Faith No More sometimes, and he sounds like himself because he has a very unique voice. Just I want to be an old man again.
The strongest part of the album, I would say, is him. Biggest.
I'm gonna be an old man again and shake my finger, kid. You shouldn't scream so much. Other than that, it's fantastic. By the third song, Marigold, I was hooked. Like that's a fantastic song.
Yeah, that was probably their most famous on that album. At the time when it released, that was
the way the news goes.
Oh, so catchy.
Even better.
So
even better.
Yeah, beautiful.
Even better. Remain Indoors is great. Catch Fire. We'll talk about your Faith No More influence. That reminds me of like newer Faith No More. Faith No More after they had their popularity spike with A Real Thing, when they were doing some really weird shit. Catch Fire. his voice reminds me of Mike Patton, and that's so much. Now, getting to the drummer, who's a complete beast, he made some really, really odd choices of what he's playing. And at first I was like,
typical like gent and like prog metal guy. He's unique.
At first I was like, okay, I'll go back to The Way the News Goes. In like, I guess the chorus part of it, he's doing this blast beat, okay, and I'm like, wow, that doesn't really fit there. And then I listen to it again, and I'm like, oh, it completely fits there. I can see it now. You talk about something that you have to listen to a few times to get all those layers and hear how they're interconnecting with each other.
The more you listen to Periphery, the more you hear. It's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh my God. There's so much to it. And that's why I said, at first it's confusing. It'll like to your average music listener, you're gonna come into this and you're gonna be like, it's like, oh my God, I don't know what they're doing.
You're gonna be disoriented.
Yeah. Totally. Until you start listening to, and a lot of it, with the prog stuff and the prog metal stuff and the gent stuff and the stuff that like your brother listens to almost exclusively, you have to give it a couple listens and you have to listen deep almost to hear these patterns and how this instrument is connecting to this one. And like I said, just that blast beat he was doing in the way the news goes. At first I'm like, oh, that's an odd choice. I wouldn't make that choice. And then I listened to it again. I'm like, I would definitely make that choice. That's exactly what that song needs right there. And Loon is a fantastic closer. The end of the album closes exactly how it should.
They closed a lot of live shows with that too. It's a really
it's got a good song.
Yeah, you get the whole audience singing along. It's awesome. It's fantastic.
It's fantastic. I liked it when they were at their strangest, I think. You know, like but most of it is fantastic. I mean, I'll probably listen to it again tomorrow on the way to work. Because it's a really, really good album. It's not bad at all. It's impressive. And just going onto YouTube and watching them do it live. The drummer has a whole thing with that one cymbal company. I forget which cymbal company he's.
Oh, I don't remember either.
But there's a bunch of videos, and Loon is one of them. It's just they're just the six of the guys in the room, and they're just playing it live. Sounds fantastic. And I can't talk about. I love people who can sing well, and I can't talk about Spencer enough. I mean, he's fantastic. He's what a great voice that guy has. Just the flexibility. Going back to him screaming, how he can scream, but he can also sing, and he can sing well. And it's just
and all the choir arrangements and stuff like that, all like the backing tracks, it's all him. He does it all. He arranges it all.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, he's a monster. Amazing. Yeah, my favorite singer alive right now. Totally.
He's really, really good. He's really good. He has a very, very comfortable feeling to his voice. It's almost like he could go join the Jonas Brothers and sing for them.
He can sing anything. There's really nothing he can't do, man. He could do
when he sings,
he could do R&B. He could do whatever.
And I don't know, has he done anything like that? Because I could see him doing like an R&B thing, like a Justin Timberlake kind of thing.
I think we touched on this really briefly in the Periphery episode, but he did launch a solo project recently. I forget what it's called, but it's got a little bit more of that kind of feel to it.
I listened to that a little bit. Yeah. Okay. I'll go back to hearing that because, like I said, his voice, his clean voice it's very poppy. It's very like I could see him sexy. Singing in like like a new pop band, like a new pop rock band, like a almost like a Fall Out Boy or Panic at the Disco.
He's right. I know
everyone's cringing right now, but I'm saying that's a very
those bands have great singers and they have great catchy vocal melodies and they're awesome bands. And if you're not into them, you're lost, man. You're missing out.
I agree.
I've gotten a lot of exposure to those bands from like doing a lot of teaching, like with my kids.
Well, you have to. You're gonna
wow, Death of a Bachelor is so catchy. Oh my god!
If you're any kind of musician, that's gonna not be in your own little hole, you're gonna hear this stuff because it's all around you, and
it's all
it's
good
not
stuff.
all.
There's nothing.
Yeah, it's not all bad.
No, it's great.
It's not all bad.
Great music.
But
it gets so played. It's like, oh, I've heard this 1,000 times.
Right.
I'm sick of it.
Right. Yeah. Periphery 3 select difficulty you will not hear on radio. It will never. Periphery was not a band that will ever be like that, and that's fine. These guys, they cut out their own niche, and they're doing fine. They're doing well, as far as I can tell, and that is a fantastic album. I'm gonna go check out what was the one? The Juggernaut? Was that their concept
like double
album?
Concept? Yeah, that's the crazy one.
I'm gonna check that out
before P3.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. Just because
you'll probably like that even more if you like the more kind of off the wall, like when they're like doing like weird stuff. That one and their most recent P4, there's like a bunch of like they really do some weird different stuff, and you'll probably love every minute of it.
Yeah, I listened to P4, but that was like on the way home from a gig, so it was like 3 a.m.
Yeah, and, you probably didn't process it all entirely.
Yeah, I mean it was in between me and your brother, shooting the shit about the gig, and and we're listening to it. Like, well, every once in a while, he would stop talking or stop me mid sentence and be like, "No, listen to this part," you know. But other than that, like, I gotta give P4 a good listen. Like I did this. This was excellent. So there you go. I give it a thumbs up. Definitely check it out if you like any kind of like progressive metal. If you like progressive metal, you gotta like this. That's
Yeah, you can't not like it. It's got something for you somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere, right? Yeah.
And then that something will draw you into the rest of it.